This roster is dumb. The 2025 Sacramento Kings are truly one of the NBA teams of all time, and that's about all they have going for them. The games on day 2 of the play-in were not particularly eventful, as both games were decided midway through the third, arguably even earlier than that. Dallas spanked Sacramento, and Miami spanked Chicago. The victors go on to try and capture the 8th seed on Friday against the losers of last night's games, and the losers, well, they go into another offseason with a whole lot of questions and even fewer answers. Hello everybody, welcome to Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video, and check us out over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you would like to enjoy this as an audio-only experience. Also, go check out Little Rusty Buckets if you would like to see my after buzzer reactions. Everybody's mad at me because I said some bad things about Josh Giddey. That's never happened before in the history of me talking about him. But with that said, let's talk about the Mavericks versus the Sacramento Kings. In the first quarter, I felt pretty confident going in that Dallas was going to end up winning this game for just a very simple reason. The only thing elite about either of these teams is the Mavericks' double big defense. That's a good thing to hang your hat on, and Sacramento really doesn't have anything else to hang their hat on that confidently. This play early seemed like a sign that I was right about that. A very nice pass here, but it does not matter because even if you do get by Derek Lively, AD is right there to clean the play right up. But unfortunately, Dallas's offense is really bad, so it didn't necessarily mean they were going to dominate out of the gate. They do not have a point guard in their starting lineup. They went with Najee Marshall and Klay Thompson as their backcourt, with PJ Washington playing the small forward position. AD in particular had a horrible first quarter, going 2 for 9 from the field. The only positive offensive player for Dallas was Najee Marshall, who hit back-to-back corner threes right after I said he's the type of bad three-point shooter to do exactly that. He's not a good three-point shooter, but he's the type of dude who will randomly have 4 in one game. He's like, I can shoot today. Because they're like, if he beats us with the mid-range shot, whatever. And we know he's not going to beat us with the 3. And you know what I just said? Actually, rewrite, this is happening live, forgot to catch this. One of those threes actually ended up being a foot on the line. So never mind, he hit a long 2 and a corner 3 back to back. Sacramento, on the other hand, has a very different offense-first approach to their game, and they had enough of it to still score decently against Dallas, at least in the first quarter. LaVine and DeMar both hit some tough three-pointers. Here, Zach pulls up from 3. AD was just a little bit too late to contest. This quelled a multi-possession drought for Sacramento, and God, do I love that jump shot form from Zach LaVine. I'm actually really glad that he's on another team now so that I can just focus on all of the things that he's good at when I watch him and not think about the $50 million a year that he's being paid. DeMar also hit a tough pull-up 3 here at the top of the key, again when Sacramento really needed it at that point. DeMar actually got the Derek Lively matchup, weirdly enough, because they want Anthony Davis to guard Sabonis, naturally. So the place for Lively to be is on the only non-3-point shooter on the floor. Well, besides for the one that DeMar just hit right there, of course. But you know, I do fear that Sacramento's reliance on hitting these difficult shots could come back to bite them if it keeps up. Which I'll say with that line right there, just for the record, I write these videos as the game is happening. Spoiler alert, their over-reliance on tough shots did come back to bite them. Sacramento ended up holding a 2-point lead going into the second, 27-29. The second quarter, however, was a complete disaster for the Sacramento Kings. While they continued to put in a poor effort on defense, all while Dallas was heating up, they also went completely cold on offense halfway through the quarter. They started on a good pace, but finished the quarter with just 19 points in total. The offense looked completely lost. They could not generate any space and settled for tough shot after tough shot. DeMar, in particular, appeared very rattled. Here, he can't generate any space off of the dribble and just kind of frustratedly throws the ball sailing out of bounds. And here, he finally manages to get an attempt around the basket for once, just for it to get absolutely swatted by Daniel Gafford. Meanwhile, Dallas was scorching from 3 on offense this time around. 3 different players in this quarter hit back-to-back threes. First, it was Brandon Williams, who's had a really impressive showing so far. This 3 was his second. It gave Dallas an 8-0 run to start the quarter, and then it got real brutal because Klay Thompson caught fire. He may not be what he was, but when one of the best shooters ever heats up, you still gotta respect it because shit gets scary. He would hit 4 threes in a very short window, only a few possessions between his second, third, and fourth make. His first 2 were back-to-back, with his first shot being one that barely rimmed in. Here, Klay hits a tough 3 off of the pull-up, off of a handoff from Derek Lively. Zach LaVine does not leave the floor on his contest, so there's just way too much space there. This was his second one after that other one that got the generous bounce. And then here is his fourth 3 of the quarter, a top-of-the-key catch-and-shoot from way downtown. Klay's 16-point quarter gave them a huge boost offensively to take a big lead, and it also gave him the game high for the first half. But Anthony Davis finally got in on the action as well, hitting a pair of back-to-back threes himself, both of them being pick and pops, with that especially not being a strong area of his game. This one was AD's second, both of them being assisted by Brandon Williams, who, as I mentioned, has been impressive. Dallas hit 8 threes in this quarter in total between AD, Klay, and Brandon. Sacramento's crowd started to boo after this last shot from Anthony Davis went in. Things are getting really ugly as Dallas leads going into the half 71-48. Sacramento fared better offensively in the third, this time scoring 33 points, but they still weren't doing anything to bother Dallas on the other end of the floor. Here, AD was running pick and roll as the ball handler, which he did multiple times, and despite the fact that his handle shouldn't be all that great necessarily, they put absolutely zero pressure on him, and here it results in a wide open lob to Daniel Gafford. I also have found myself really impressed by Brandon Williams throughout this game. He's the standout player here. He just has a lot of veteran savvy for a young player, and he showcased that especially well on this layup, where he displays a ton of patience. He pump fakes and waits till he is open for the shot. Sacramento did some scoring on the break early into the quarter, which gained them some momentum, even forcing Kidd to call a timeout after 6 straight points on the break from Sacramento. However, the offense just evolved the same exact way that it did in Chicago for DeMar and LaVine. It's just relying on these two to backpack you with their shot making. It is a futile effort that if you're already leaning on that this early into the game, you're already dead. You can get shots like these where Zach LaVine hits a tough post fade on the baseline to bail them out, or where DeMar gets this and one off of a spin move around Max Christie. These plays are nice in a vacuum, but that's just not going to be enough. This is a strong scoring quarter from DeMar. He had 13 here, but if that's all that you're going to get, you're still not going to have a very strong offensive quarter. But this play style, it just doesn't get you anywhere besides for, at best, keeping your head above water. And at this point, they can't just afford to trade baskets. They need to be digging themselves out of the hole that they're in. As a result, Sacramento isn't down 23 as they were going into the quarter, but you'd ideally chip away more than 5 points of that lead after a full quarter. So Dallas is still leading 99-81 going into the fourth. The fourth of this game really just felt like an obligation for a game that was already over. It especially felt that way when Doug McDermott checked in. Not much of interest happened here, so I'm not gonna yap about this quarter. What stood out to me the most in this quarter is the extent of how little I've actually seen Sabonis score in this game. In general, it felt like he wasn't even there, especially at the rim. So to summarize the vibe of this game, here is the final play for you, where on a drive by PJ Washington, he hands it off to Gafford and he one-hand slams it over Sabonis. That was pretty much the energy the whole way through. Dallas wins 120-106. Let's move on to some notes for the Dallas Mavericks specifically. I felt confident in them going into this matchup, as I have previously highlighted. I really enjoyed the double big dynamic with Anthony Davis out there, even if there is a lot of stuff wrong with what the Dallas Mavericks have been doing, how they got here in the first place. At the bare minimum, I do enjoy the AD at the 4 minutes, allowing him to be a ball handler out of the pick and roll so much was really cool. Just letting him be the point guard that he was earlier on in his career. A lot of good stuff with that. I really like the utilization of Anthony Davis's playmaking ability, but it definitely had some weird offensive quirks. This was especially an interesting starting lineup choice because you had Najee Marshall at point guard, Klay Thompson at the 2, PJ at the 3, as I mentioned, AD at the 4, and your choice of the centers on the Mavericks depending on the lineup. So that was all cool, but I do feel as though Brandon Williams was deserving of more opportunity and more minutes. He only played about 17 minutes in this one, but he absolutely fucking killed it every time he was in. So given that they don't have a real point guard otherwise, given that this guy has a real veteran savvy and a very reliable three-point shot, especially on a team that could struggle with spacing at times, especially because Najee Marshall is a prominent part of this offense while not being a good three-point shooter, plus the double big lineups, having people out there who can actually shoot the three ball well is really helpful. Clay had a crazy hot game. He had 23 points on 8 for 11 shooting, 5 for 7 from downtown. As I mentioned, he had the in the quarter. Anthony Davis kind of fluffed the box score a little bit in the fourth quarter, but he did struggle with his shot most of the game. It did not end up mattering. His offensive impact was so significant that it didn't end up mattering, but or his defensive impact rather was so significant it did not end up mattering. But not the best offensive showing from him. He's kind of struggled a little bit ever since he's been in Dallas, which is completely reasonable. Completely wild shakeup for your career. There was this weird play from him in this one that I didn't include in the recap because it just didn't have a real place in the flow of things. That is the weird part. There's the occasional play you get in there that it's just like, this is interesting and I want to highlight it, but I'm trying to narrativize how the quarter goes. And the play where Anthony Davis gets a goaltend on a Keon Ellis three-pointer, one that he was getting fouled on at the time. Just a weird fucking play. I believe that was in the second quarter, and Dallas executed that quarter phenomenally on both ends of the floor, with just one really, really weird blunder there. Also, Nico Harrison showed up a shitload. I don't know what that's about. I don't know why he was on the screen all the time. It's like that Taylor Swift shit in the NFL that a bunch of chuds complain about for no fucking reason. Like, Nico Harrison is on the screen all the fucking time. Anyways, on to the Sacramento Kings. For their notes, they don't have Malik Monk, but that's not enough of an excuse, and obviously the Dallas Mavericks don't have fucking Kyrie Irving, so there's no excuses here. DeMar and Levine were trying to shoot a bad team out of being bad, which is the same story that I have seen a couple of years in a row. It's just a new team, so nothing about this was remotely surprising to me. DeMar got swatted twice by Daniel Gafford, and each time it felt like a personal-ass block. I don't know why, but there was a lot of vitriol in the way that he blocked those shots. Keegan Murray is probably one of the most disappointing young players in the league for me. At this point, he's like 25, so he's not even that young, but after his rookie year where he set the record for most threes in a rookie season, I really had a lot of high hopes from him as a tall forward with a really, really good three-point shot, and his defense improved as I anticipated it would since his rookie year, but his three ball has not been the same, and the offensive acumen that he showed beyond that three ball has not really turned into anything of substance. Only a couple of moments, not a substantial type of thing to bank on, and he did not have a good game here either, one that would have been helpful. He's the type of guy who can be an X factor where if he starts hitting some shots for real, then they're a lot better of a team, but that did not happen. Sabonis was a non-factor. He had 11 points on 5 of 13 shooting, 5 assists, but 5 turnovers. Bad defense around the rim, as you would typically expect. So, yeah, Sabonis typically has a good history against Anthony Davis, but he was just a non-factor here. They let him shoot jump shots. No one cared about that. And, yeah, he just did not have a presence around the rim. I guess Gafford, Lively, and Anthony Davis is just too much pressure around the basket. That's just simply too much rim protection. Devin Carter is the only player who played real minutes for the Sacramento Kings while having a positive plus-minus. He went 3 for 4. He hit a 3 at the end of the first quarter that it really felt like that was like a sign that Sacramento might have it. It was a good play to end the quarter on, but no one really matched his energy. That momentum did not continue over. But shout out to Devin Carter. He made a couple of good defensive plays that resulted in some fast break buckets in the second quarter. So my final thoughts on the Kings. What is the fucking point of this team? I have never seen such a team that is just the most whatever collection of players. Like, there is no rhyme or reason for the construction of this roster other than for some reason the Kings were so dedicated to being competitive after trading De'Aaron Fox. But while I recognize the Kings have been in such a way for so long that they really don't want to go the tanking route, the reality is in the Western Conference you're in right now, you are not going to be getting back into a play-in tier level next year, so you're not going to use that as a way to sneak into the playoffs. So you're going to be bad anyways. You might as well blow it up. You might as well trade everyone on this roster that you can. You might might end up just being the new team that's stuck with Zach LaVine. I don't know how easily he could be moved, but regardless, everybody on this team, besides for a few of the young players, needs to be moved ASAP. This roster is dumb. The 2025 Sacramento Kings are truly one of the NBA teams of all time, and that's about all they have going for them. With that said, let's get into this Bulls versus Heat recap. In the first quarter, Miami was in control pretty much as soon as they started because they came out of the gate shooting very hot. They ended up going 6 for 9 from 3 in the quarter. Tyler Hero in particular was scorching, hitting 2 difficult threes, including this incredibly deep 3 off of the dribble over the contest. He scored 16 in the first. Andrew Wiggins was also putting up double digits, scoring 10, hitting both of his three-pointers, including this corner catch and shoot. In fact, I believe both of his threes were out of the corner. It also did not help that the Bulls were completely unaware of the concept of rim protection in the first half of the quarter, and this ended up repeating itself at different stages of the game. They ended up giving up multiple easy looks as a result. Here is Andrew Wiggins just wide open for a backdoor reverse layup. The Bulls struggled offensively in the first half of the quarter, only scoring 12 points by the 6-minute mark, but they would heat up a bit and prevent an outright blowout of a quarter. Giddey was active. He missed a ton of floaters, but he actually offensive rebounded like 2 of them. He had a really nice pass fake that led to an open 3, which he nailed, and he was really effective as a cutter. Here is a great setup by Kobe White to a cutting Giddey around the rim, and my boy Buzelis would give them a lot of momentum to close by hitting a wild 3. He gets the steal, and the ball just leaves his fingertips at the buzzer off of the pull-up from outside. Miami ends the quarter up 39-28. In the end of quarter 1, the Bulls actually were given some hope for quarter 2, but the Heat made sure to completely snuff it out immediately. They opened up with an 11-2 run, once again getting a ton of great paint looks. Finds Ware on Giddey here before any help defense can get there. Ware does a quick post move and dunks it over him, and the hot shooting continued. Hero only took 2 shots, and on them he got fouled, and the other was a deep 3 that he swished, so still not missing a shot in the first half for Tyler Hero. Duncan Robinson also hit back-to-back threes, including this second one coming out of the corner with Vucevic draped all over him. The Bulls' offense, completely aimless, just a bunch of nothing. Every point that they did score was some dumb ISO shot from a role player that the defense will take every time. They were looking at Kevin Huerter to save them for multiple possessions. Kevin Huerter, please save us. That's Kevin Huerter step back mid-range shots were like half of the Bulls offense for a minute there. That's fucking embarrassing. The only bucket worth showing from them here was this, with this spectacular Euro step left hand and one that Buzelis finished on the break. This ended a scoring drought, and they scored again like 2 more times, but they picked that drought right back up again immediately after those buckets. Miami, by contrast, was working together perfectly. They had 21 assists on the 27 made shots in the first half. That is an excellent ratio. Meanwhile, the Bulls were getting all of their buckets out of the ISO with players that you do not want isolating. As a result, the Heat going into the second were up 71-47. The third quarter once again saw the Bulls get back into it a little bit, but more because Miami went cold more so than the Bulls actually doing anything special. It's not like they flipped some switch and suddenly they started playing good. It just started to work in their favor, just like from the pure RNG of it all. In the first half of the quarter, the Bulls scored 16 to Miami's 7. On the baseline out of bounds play here, Buzelis bullies Alec Burks baseline for a dunk. And here we get a transition 3 from Kobe, which makes it a 15-point game. He really loves these kind of shots. I believe he hit 3 threes in this game, and I think all 3 of them were transition pull-ups. At least 2 of them were. After this run from the Bulls, Hero sat for a bit because he was tired and he had started this quarter 1 for 4 after the perfect first half. I thought this was a bad idea on the part of Eric Spoelstra because the Bulls were starting to make a little bit of a comeback and the lineup without him was just completely putrid on offense. But the Bulls failed to capitalize on this opportunity entirely. They started to go cold the moment Hero was off of the floor. Chicago has generated lot of turnovers in this game. That's basically the only thing they've done in this one that's impressed me. They are definitely up there with some of the most active teams in the league in terms of how they play the passing lane. And once again, we did get a miracle shot to at least keep some hope alive. This time, not quite at the buzzer, but pretty close here. Taylor Horton-Tucker at the end of the shot clock hits a fadeaway mid-range shot to close the third, which gets the crowd to wake up. Had to be a very frustrating possession for the Miami Heat because they defended perfectly all the way up until that last second. But Miami is now only up 14, 88-74, and Miami actually has 15 losses this year when leading heading into the quarter, while the Bulls have become known for their comebacks this year, having 13 wins after trailing through 3. So yeah, that is kind of, maybe there's an open window. That's certainly what they were implying on the broadcast, but I didn't think that was going to happen. And man, is it not what fucking happened. So even with the double-digit deficit, the Bulls could still theoretically pull a win here, right? Well, in a similar pattern to the first half, after ending on a high note, the Bulls once again were just immediately fucking crushed in the following quarter, as Miami would score 21 points, which is not all that great, but they held Chicago to just 16. The fourth quarter of this game was just a formality like the other ones, so I have little to say about it. The only thing I'm going to do is bitch about this one bad call in particular. Here, Hero hits a 3 over Buzelis, which was called for an offensive foul on Hero, but to me, this is clearly a regular defensive foul. The call stands after the challenge, which makes me all the more confused, which when you look at it side by side, like his eye line, he doesn't even know that Buzelis is there. So how would he, be making the kicking his leg out move? Like, he wasn't fishing for a call. He just jumps forward when he shoots. It was a very natural motion. It pissed me off so much. Like, nothing else mattered at that point in the game. It wasn't important, but stupid call. And I will always call out a stupid call when I can, when I remember to anyways. I try not to focus on the bad things of the game so much, but Jesus, did that play piss me off. But anyways, Miami would win this game 109-90. So for some notes with the Miami Heat, we got a great Tyler Hero game, 38-5-4 on 81% true shooting. He hit 3 of his 7 3-pointers, and all 3 of them were ridiculous fucking shots. They were the most impossible 3 of the game. And what's funny is I believe the 4 that he missed were just more routine catch and shoots. But Tyler Hero doesn't like open shots. He has the J.R. Smith mentality. Give me the contested threes all day. This was a decent game from Wiggins, even if his efficiency was bad by the end. He just kind of took some shots at the end of the game that he shouldn't have, but he was hitting them when Miami took the big lead that they did that ultimately won them the game. So he did the part that he was supposed to do when it mattered. Give credit to him for it. I feel like Bam Adebayo missed every damn shot that he took, like jump shot in this game. He went 1 for 5 from 3, but the one that he hit was the most wide open one in the world. All of them were wide open, but they weren't going in. He also got a ton of mid-range pull-ups out of the pick and roll, like really short 10-foot jumpers that refused to go in. It was a pretty ugly shooting game from him. Davion Mitchell, I don't think appeared once in this entire recap, which is kind of a shame. It's just that his plays were not like necessarily huge momentum shifters, but he was a great player the whole way through for the Miami Heat. Really good defense that was really harassing Chicago's guards, and he ended up finishing with 15 points and 9 assists. He did not miss a shot, going 5 for 5, and he had a 110% true shooting percentage. Easily the best play of the game to me from him was in the fourth quarter when he blocked Kobe White after being draped all over him for the entire possession. Truly an off-night moment if there ever was one. This was a much better coach team as well. That stood out a lot. That, I think, stands out a lot more when you're dealing with two teams that are at a talent deficit. Like when you have teams that aren't very good, the difference in coaching stands out all the more. Like when we're talking about top teams, a lot of it is determined just purely by the talent, but teams that are their first options, Josh Giddey, Tyler Hero, nowhere near the top of the list of first options you want in the NBA. So it just came down to which one of these teams can actually generate consistent looks as a team, and it was easily the Miami Heat. Again, mentioning the assist to field goal ratio between the two teams, it was night and day. Their defense was also fantastic, and they really shut down the Bulls for prolonged stretches, which is the reason that they were able to get out in front. They weren't like locking down the whole time, but they would have like 5 or 6 minute stretches, one in the second quarter, one in the fourth, where nothing was going Chicago's way, and it just made it all the bit easier to bury them. Good game from Miami. I like this team post Jimmy Butler. I would like to actually see them in the playoffs, so I am interested to see what they can do if they do end up winning that game against the Atlanta Hawks, which I do think is going to happen. Also, while I'm here, let me quickly say that I do think that the Grizzlies will beat the Sacramento Kings. And let's move on to the Chicago Bulls notes. I do want to say real quick that in my immediate post-game reaction, I was a little bit harsher on Josh Giddey than I should be. I kind of do this thing where I'm definitely negative on him, so I point out the negatives more than anything else. But one negative I have to point out is he missed every fucking floater that he took in this game. He, as I mentioned in the recap, he offensive rebounded like 1 or 2 of them and put them back. So, it wasn't all bad, but he hit one with the last 2.5 minutes of the game in garbage time. He overall did not shoot the ball super well. He got 25 points, but it took 21 shots for him to do it. But he was also like the only guy out there who was creating advantages ever. There were definitely possessions where the fact that he could not get downhill very effectively was a big reason that the Bulls offense did not work. But in terms of the tier of guy who you should blame for them losing, Josh Giddey is not very high up on that list. I would definitely point out Kobe White as a bigger problem, as he shot 5 for 20 from the field, 3 for 12 from outside, and a lot of those were good looks. He got a good handful of clean catch and shoot threes that he just did not drop. My only gripe with Giddey, especially, the thing that I've been saying time and time again, is that when he actually gets put into a playoff-like setting, how is his 3-ball actually going to look? Well, he shot 2 for 7 in this one. I will say one of the 2 threes that he did hit, though, was sick. The pass fake that he did to get into the open shot was clean. I really enjoyed that. Trying to enjoy the good things about him because I don't want to be so cynical, but I cannot emphasize enough, Josh Giddey is just the archetype of player that I have always disliked. So it's not personal. I just hate true point guards, even if they're 6'8", unless they're Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson is an exception to the rule. Talen Horton-Tucker was weirdly good. I've seen him have his moments for the Bulls this year, but I didn't expect him to really be a prominent part of the Bulls rotation, and yet here he was in the postseason, I guess kind of postseason, getting big opportunities. He hit a post fade that I showed you earlier. He had a pull-up 3 out of the pick and roll that I was surprised by, so shout out to him for that. He was a positive contributor. Patrick Williams was out there doing cardio. It's actually insane how much I have fallen off on my belief in him as a prospect. Manas Buzelis had a lot of big moments. He hit that buzzer-beating 3, as I previously mentioned, and he also got that and 1 Euro step lefty layup. Not a great overall performance from him, but I literally cannot be mad at Buzelis. He still did perfectly fine for this being like the highest intensity game probably that he's played in his NBA career. So yeah, I mean, I harped on the Bulls a lot more in my post-game immediate reaction over on Little Rusty, so if you want to hear more about what I think about them, go check that out. But for the most part, not surprised. This is you can't be upset. You can't be bothered when you don't have expectations in the first place. Like, I didn't care what happened with the Bulls here. In fact, if anything, I would prefer that they lose. So the fact that they did is good, and I'm hoping that the big thing is I just didn't want them to learn the lesson again that you can be mid and get rewarded with a playoff spot because of the play-in and the fact that you're in a shit-ass Eastern Conference. The Bulls are not a playoff-level team. The East is just the way that it is. And honestly, I would say that of at least the 8th seed that is going to be in the East here, the fucking Hawks, the Heat, whoever it ends up being, not good. Not good teams, but it's not like the East doesn't traditionally have an 8th seed that's just a complete wash, but God, the balances between the conferences only seems to be more blatantly unbalanced as time goes on. But yeah, that's enough of that. Chicago Bulls can't disappoint me if I don't have expectations. Miami Heat, I really enjoy this team post Jimmy Butler. I really do. They just play free. They're not good. They're not a good team, but they play in a way that I enjoy a lot. But yeah, that is it, and goodbye.